everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. This right here is Nick Wright. We are back here in New York after a great couple of days in Cleveland, Ohio, side of the baseball All-Star game last night, the Home Run Derby Monday night. It was fun. Took it on the road.
A shout out to all the fans, especially the one fan. Guys watch every episode. Comes out to the show, makes up a great sign. And all those people who have supported us in almost 2 years of being on the air, thank you. And let's do it.
I love
Absolutely.
it. All right, we got a big show today. Talk some basketball. Kevin Durant could be back sooner than we originally thought. Russell Westbrook might be on the move. We got to start this morning with the Los Angeles Lakers. After missing out on Kawhi Leonard, the Lakers went and filled out the roster by bringing in a number of veterans to surround LeBron and Anthony Davis. So last season, the Lakers had players, but no shooting. This season, the Lakers have shooting, but are the players they brought in enough? According to a report, at least one NBA exec said this is a much stronger team, one that fits around LeBron better than last season. What do you think, Nick? Is this LeBron's best team since leaving Miami?
It's definitely a stronger team than last year. Is it a better team, better than any team he had in Cleveland? Well, then let's compare it to the best Cleveland team. The best Cleveland team was not the team that won the championship in 2016. It was the team that lost to Kevin Durant and Steph Curry in 2017. That team had an all-time offense. In the playoffs, they were 12-1 going into the NBA Finals. It was, if you remember, the Warriors swept through their side of the bracket. The Cavs nearly swept through their side of the bracket. And so is this team better than that Cavs team? I don't think so, as presently constituted, because while that Cavs team didn't have anyone as good as Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving had what I believe to be the best year of his career that year, 25-3-6. Kevin Love should not be forgotten. He was excellent that season, and they had 6 veteran role players in Tristan, J.R. Shump, Corver, R.J., Richard Jefferson, of course, and Channing Frye, that you could all rely on in big spots. And to me, the X factor there is we knew that team had an excellent coach in Ty Lue. We do not know if this Lakers team has an excellent coach or an excellent coaching staff. Now, the potential C for this Lakers team is to be the best team LeBron's been on since those Miami years, because Anthony Davis is the best teammate he's had since the first 2 years with Dwayne Wade, but there's a lot of variables. The coaching is a variable. What the starting lineup's going to be is a variable. What their rotation is a variable. And unlike those Miami or even Cleveland years, you have to include LeBron's health as at least a slight variable. So there is enormous upside with this year's Lakers team, but I don't think you can say it's the best team LeBron's been on in 6 seasons.
Well, this is the thing. What's really important? Is it important that he's as good? Is this the best team he's been on? To me, it's not that important. You know the reason why? Because there is no super team out there. Like, he don't have to beat the Warriors. He doesn't have to go through Clay, KD, and Steph. So what difference does it make? Is this team good enough to be able to win him a championship based on the duos around the league? Yes. This is not the NBA that it's been the last 5 years. So we don't have to worry about that standard. There are things that I would be concerned about, not things that Nick mentioned as far as the coaching staff. All those things, they got credible NBA coaches. They got 3 guys on their coaching staff that have been head coaches. So I'm not going to worry about that. I believe that's going to work itself out. How good are they going to be defensively? And what you mentioned about the Cleveland team was, the thing that was special about the role players were they were more athletic than what the Lakers have right now. But each guy knew what their role was going to be.
Knew their exact role.
And we don't know that with the Lakers. I think one of the things that I would be concerned with is watching is you can't even make these comparisons, LeBron's team, say the Lakers and the Cavs and our Miami, because what LeBron James are we going to get? We just automatically saying that we're going to do. What did LeBron do in those 2017 playoffs? What did he do in the 2016 playoffs? Are we saying right now in July that that's the LeBron that we're going to see? Now, I'm a huge fan of LeBron, but what I had seen him do in the finals, I can't just grant that to him. Do I think he can dominate? Yes. But can he dominate in that fashion? I don't know that. So I believe there's a lot of question marks going forward. But are they as good as anyone else in the NBA? I believe to be yes, and I believe that's the most important question.
We know, at least for the most part, what LeBron will give you. We know, for the most part, barring any injuries, what AD is going to give you. You mentioned a whole list of variables. Is Kyle Kuzma on that list of variables? Is he their number 3? Is he their 3rd best player on that team?
Well, Chris, I know you're very high on Kuz. He has to be the 3rd best scoring option. He has to be your number 3 option offensively. Avery Bradley's not going to be that. You look around the roster and you say, okay, Danny Green, I think, might be their 3rd most important player, but he's not going to be your 3rd leading scorer. Kuzma has to fill the role of 17 to 20 points per game to create. You're right. It's not this NBA it was a few years ago where you have to have 3 superstars to be in the conversation, but he has to be a fringe. Offensively, he needs to be a guy that's not an all-star, but is a well above average starter, a guy who they can rely on to take over for moments. And he and Boogie, when the bench unit's in, because Kuzma, I think, will start, but could be in there with the bench unit, that they can run the offense through either one of those guys when Anthony Davis and LeBron both go to the bench.
Yeah, I believe Kuz's development is vital to what they're trying to do. He's very, very athletic. He should be a better defender than what he is. And 2 areas that I would want to watch to see, man, is Kuz making those steps? As a defender, is he better? Is he a better individual defender given how athletic he is? And can he just get back to what you and I talked about this morning, to where he was as a rookie, shooting 3-pointers, wide open 3-pointers. Because he's going to get a lot of looks. LeBron's going to break down the defense. People are going to collapse on AD, and he's going to be wide open. And on those wide open shots, can he shoot a percentage that puts fear into the defense? Because he's going to get a lot of good looks. I thought you did a great job this morning explaining how well he shot the ball as a rookie, and that was surprising. But then this year, given the trade rumors and everything else, is he going to be traded? Are his buddies going to be traded? He went through a slump. Those other guys went through a different type of slump, but his slump was shooting the basketball.
Listen, Kuz shot 30% from 3 this year after shooting over 37%, I believe, his rookie season, and it was wide open misses. I talked with him about it the tail end of the season. He didn't have an answer for it. He was in the bottom 10 percentile in the league of all players shooting wide open misses.
Is that generally a confidence thing?
Well, I don't know if it was confidence. I don't know if it was bad luck. I don't know if it's small sample size. Usually it's either you're just a terrible shooter or you're having very bad luck or you're dealing with an injury. He wasn't injured. We know he's not a terrible shooter. That should bounce back, and that has to bounce back because, to your point, he will get more wide open threes this year than last year because of the attention Anthony Davis is going to demand, and because LeBron missed almost 30 games last year. LeBron will generate those open threes. Kuz knows he has to knock those down.
The shooting would have made sense, Jenna, if the 30% would have been in the first year. It would have been like, oh, okay.
Okay.
First year out of college, even though he played several years in college. Then he comes back the second year and shoots the way he did the first year. But no, when you see it going the other way, when you see it going that way, there's more apt to get it corrected compared to if he couldn't shoot at all. So I believe Kuz is one of the wild cards moving forward.
And just real quick, on that point, if they are going to start a center, if they're not going to start LeBron, Anthony Davis, and a center, then Kuzma has to hit threes because you only have 2 true shooters out there, Danny Green and Kuzma. He's going to have to make it.
All right, moving on. Kevin Durant wasted no time announcing his decision to play in Brooklyn. Did it right at the start of free agency, but get this. Nets GM Sean Marks said that he didn't know KD chose his team until everyone else found out on social media. Marks also added that the team doctors evaluated Durant's torn Achilles on Monday, and they have not ruled him out for next season. See, would Durant be making a mistake rushing back next season?
I don't think so. I think that, and this is the tricky part, all right, because he's got a very difficult rehab process. And from everything that I know, as far as sports science and athletes, you need to put a carrot in front of the horse to keep the horse going. So conventional wisdom is he forced himself into the playoff game, which jeopardized his career. Why would he force himself onto the basketball court? Because he don't think like me and you. And that's what a lot of fans get this mixed up. Well, if it was me. Well, it's not you. And typically, athletes are going to take the chance. Also, Kevin Durant, when the better shape you're in when you get a traumatic injury like that, the speedier the recovery, less trauma to the joints, and it's easier for you to get back to action. To me, I would set the fastest return that I could. I would look at all the athletes the last 10 years who have torn their Achilles in every sport, and I would target one of those people who came out the fastest. And I believe that a positive attitude, trainers, coaches, doctors will tell you this, it will speed up your recovery. So if you think you're going to get better, you know something? You're going to get better. And as you guys know, you work with me. I'm a very, very positive person. If you guys think this is going to be slow, then his rehab will be slow. If you don't think he's going to play next year, he's not going to play next year. But what I think Kevin Durant is going to do is he's going to be committed to the rehab. He's got a tremendous amount of confidence in Brooklyn's staff. Their team doctor has been his own personal doctor and has operated on him a couple times. And looking up Brooklyn, not only their coaching staff being different, but their medical staff is like no other. They have a guy who used to run Australian rules football. Kenny Atkinson, as a coach, was known as a player development. So they went in and got guys used to train Navy SEALs. So they're looking at every sport, every explosive type exercise. They measure each guy, every muscle. So they do a great job as far as load management, as good as anyone in the league. So when you put that with one of the best athletes we've seen, I expect to see Kevin Durant next year. And because I believe Kevin Durant wants to make a speedy recovery and get back out there with his teammates.
Well, the key word in the question to me is, would it be a mistake for him to rush back? Of course it would be a mistake to rush back.
But what is rushing?
Right. That doesn't mean it would be a mistake to come back. I agree with Cris in this regard. I think he should target, I want to be back March 1st. Just to have, before the playoffs begin, have that as a target date. Do I think that's realistic? I do not. Do I think that, given there are a lot of variables here that make this more difficult to come back for this season than a typical Achilles injury? One is, let's say instead of being 12 months, it is 9.5 months. Well, that puts him coming back right at the start of the playoffs.
Okay, wait a second. Mm-hmm. But who put the rehab being a year? Who said that?
Well, what do you mean, who said that? I don't understand the question.
But who marked that? Who said that Achilles injury, you're going to be out a year?
Historically in the NBA, we have seen guys typically miss 9 to 12 months. Boogie missed a week short of a year. We saw Kobe Bryant miss...
No, you're talking about when he got hurt to when he came back.
Yes, that's what I'm talking
about. Boogie was ready before that, though.
Okay, but so Boogie missed 358 days. So let's say he was ready 30 days early. That's 11 months.
From the people I'm talking to... Mm-hmm. 6.5 months, the guy will be ready to play at full capacity. All right, now, the people I trust who work with the best athletes in the world, that's what they've told me. He'll be ready. Now, will the organization and or the athlete be ready? But as far as the rupture will be completely healed, and he will be 100%.
If you were the general manager of that team, would you put Kevin Durant, if he said he was fine and team doctors were like 6.5 months he's fine, would you feel comfortable putting him back out on the court?
It's about the eye test. Where is he as far as his basketball progression, and is he confident? Yes, and if he's confident he can get on the court, when he says that, yes, we're going to put him out there. Once the staff says that, yes, that's when I'd put him out there, absolutely.
But in order for him, the point that I was leading to, if I were a part of the organization, there's a drop-dead date to this regard. I cannot have Kevin Durant's first game back from an Achilles with a roster where he's played with 0 guys, 0 games, 0 minutes, be in the intensity of the playoffs. So if he can come back with a few weeks left in the regular season and ease himself into it, that's one thing. But now we are talking about a 9-month recovery. At 10.5 months, then you're talking about the second round of the NBA playoffs. But the Nets, by the way, could get to without Kevin Durant. The East has 2 excellent teams and then a bunch of maybes. But what I feel comfortable when Kevin Durant is, the plan for the Nets is contend for a title in 2021 and 2022, and hopefully KD and Kyrie both stay for the full 4 years, also 2023. That is their ultimate window. I would not jeopardize that if KD, even if he's cleared, have his first game be in the NBA playoffs. I think Kevin Durant, we saw when he came back from the injury, the intensity of the NBA finals. Like, we all know there's regular season speed, first round speed, conference final speed, and NBA final speed. Like, we've heard players talk about how each finals game feels like the workload of 2 regular season games, each playoff game like a game and a half of regular season action. So I just think because when he got injured, because it was at the end of the postseason, it means for him to come back next year, it has to be an even more expedited recovery time. And that is not to mention that he doesn't have the benefit of having ever played with any of these guys and the comfort level that would come from that and the amount of getting to know each other on the court that any new player not coming off an injury, that Kyrie's going to have to deal with the Nets during the beginning of the season.
No one would give a player of Kevin Durant's caliber advice to play. You missed the whole regular season. You had an Achilles injury to play in the playoffs. No one would give him that advice. So we're not talking about that. Imagine if Brooklyn was not a playoff team. What would your advice to Kevin Durant be? Just skip all the next year? Or try to come back in the last little quarter of the season, last couple weeks of the season, to be able to play with these. This is basketball, man. You don't need that much time to get to know a guy. This is Kevin Durant. Move out the way, let him post up, let him get mid-range. Like, you don't need to get to know that. So for me, I would have the objective, forget they're a playoff team. Let's imagine they're out of the playoffs. I believe Kevin Durant, and my goal for him would be to play next season. And I have to put myself in it. If it was me, I would be trying to play next season. I wouldn't be listening to outside people. I'd be listening to my doctors. And I talked to a guy that handled my whole career. And I asked him, what would happen if we were training Kevin Durant or it was me? He said, Chris, you'll be ready in 6.5 months, and we would try to get you back out there.
But isn't that the mentality the athlete has to have in order to, like, of course, if it's you want to believe that.
No, the athlete don't have to have it.
But should
But
have
it's
it.
the difference between average folks, good athletes, and the best of the best. The best of the best all think a certain way. And I'm not trying to tell him to be reckless, but he's one of the greatest athletes that we've seen. Typically, their recovery happens to go faster than other regular people.
On July 20th, the legend Manny Pacquiao taking on undefeated Keith one-time Thurman for the World Welterweight Championship in the biggest fight of the year, July 20th, live on pay-per-view and the Fox Sports app. Time now for Say What? Though Rob Gronkowski is thoroughly enjoying retirement, rumors have the 3-time Super Bowl champ possibly making a comeback. With Gronk and Tom Brady recently working out together at UCLA, it was just business as usual for Gronk. Say what?
It was great working out. Yeah. Tom needs someone to throw to, so you know he calls Mr. Reliable Robbie G the one and only. Woo! Yeah.
I already miss Gronk. He's so
just hanging out in L.A., playing a little
Just-
catch with Tom Brady. Gronk is so thin, man. You see him in that basketball jersey, see a little charity event.
Lost a lot of that bulk already.
How much?
Where did it go, though? Like, how do you lose all that muscle that quick?
I don't know. Did you stop working out?
What are you getting at,
got any
Z?
theories? How many pounds do you think he's lost?
30?
That's what I was going to say.
Easily.
Yeah.
And just imagine, is there a finesse Gronk? Tell me something about his game that he can do finesse. All right, so you know what's going to end up happening?
The post-game interview.
Gronk go back out there, you're going to end up just like your boy, Chris Carter. Yeah, Mr. Reliable, right in the hospital today.
Kidney failure.
That I do know.
Lacerated spleen.
That I do know.
Stories to start your morning. So last night's All-Star game did not disappoint. The American League came out on top, beating the NL 4-3 in Cleveland. Hometown pitcher Shane Bieber won MVP honors after striking out the side on 19 pitches in the top of the 5th inning. Nick, what was your biggest takeaway from the All-Star festivities?
I mean, you got to feel like the home run derby stole the show. That the Vlad Guerrero Jr., Jock Peterson semifinal, and then the Vlad Guerrero Jr., Pete Alonso final on Monday night was kind of the sparkling moment of the weekend. But I thought the city of Cleveland did a great job. The fans were out in full force. And to see a guy not a lot of people knew about, who was a hometown guy, end up winning the MVP of the game in what was a closely contested good game. That was really cool.
Yeah, Major League Baseball has it right. This is a 3-day celebration of baseball. in the middle of summer. Great baseball town being there in Cleveland. Home Run Derby was spectacular. I think all the other leagues should put some money up. If you want guys to do something, you guys want LeBron James and some of these other top guys, man, put a bunch of money up in slam dunk contests and all these other skills competition. It'll bring out the best.
And I loved having the players mic'd up throughout the game last night. That added a nice element.
Yesterday, the NBA approved using coaches' challenges next season. Teams can use one challenge per game on personal fouls called on the coach's own team, an out-of-bounds call, goaltending, or basket interference. Nick, good idea or bad idea?
Well, I think you know where I stand on this. I don't like challenges in any sport. I think the expansion of replay makes the viewing experience worse, and I don't think it makes officiating better. The NBA is barely expanding it, but they are adding an element we've never had at any level of basketball, which is a coach's challenge. Now, you're going to have a timeout. It's on a very limited basis, but we know how challenges have worked in other sports, which is there is a bit of a mission creep element, which is first it's this, now it's this. In the NFL, we're seeing now it's pass interference as well. So I don't like it. I'm not going to whine about it, but I don't think it's going to make the games better. I'll tell you that.
No, I don't think it's going to make the games better, and I know what it's not going to make better. It's not going to make the relationship with the referees and the coaches and the players better. Right now, we know we have a problem. Last couple of years, 2 All-Star games ago, they met with the referees and the players, try to come to some type of understanding about doing their job. Now you get a replay, and now it's just going to bring more confusion and more NBA players. I mean, every NBA game, none of those guys commit fouls. None of them do anything wrong. So now we'll have video evidence to be able to prove one of them wrong again.
All right, moving on. Jared Dudley recently tweeted some love for his new teammate Kyle Kuzma, said Kuz is the key for the Lakers. The 23-year-old was the one young player the Lakers insisted on keeping. CC, how much confidence do you have that Kuzma can be the Lakers' third best player in his third season?
Well, when you look at the rumors, as far as him, Ingram, Ball, who's going to be there, and now they have Anthony Davis. Kuzma, I hope he's having a great offseason. They didn't sign Kawhi Leonard. I thought he was the biggest benefactor of that, him not signing, because now as an offensive threat, he has the ability to be able to thrive. I've always liked his skill level. I thought he was a better shooter coming out of college than we ever thought he'd be, and I thought he had the potential to be just as good as the other players drafted the year before him and 2 years before him. So I think things look very, very good as far as his future, looking to see where he grows his game in year 3.
Right, but if in order for him to be the third best offensive player in the Lakers, he just needs to continue the natural evolution he showed last year while getting back to what he did his rookie season on open threes. His rookie season, shot 398 open threes. Made 38% of them. Last season, shot 402 open threes, almost the exact same amount. Shot 31% on them. 38% on open threes is good. 31% ranks in the bottom 10 in the NBA. He's going to have even more opportunities for open threes this year. Averaged 5 a game last season. If he can get back around 38% on those open threes like you're seeing right there, then he will be the third best offensive player on the Lakers and a guy who should approach 18 to 20 points per game next season.
All right, moving on to the NFL now. Cam Newton is reportedly expected to be a full participant in training camp after having off-season shoulder surgery. Last season, Cam suffered his injury Week 10 against the Steelers after a big hit from T.J. Watt. Tried to play through it, but eventually missed a couple of games. CeCe, what do you expect from Cam next season?
I expect Cam to continue to get better. Last year we saw Scott Turner, the son of Norv Turner, the quarterback coach. Norv Turner, legendary NFL coach, is running everything there in Carolina. And they're both excited about working with Cam. Cam got some necessary things cleared up as far as his shoulder, off-season surgery this year. I do have a good friend that's on the staff there, so in talking, evaluating with them, they look for Carolina and their offense to be far more explosive. McCaffrey, look for him. He set a goal as a 1,000-yard receiver, 1,000-yard running back. Their offense is going to start with him. Cam's not going to be as reckless as we've seen him in the past. He's going to continue to develop as a pocket passer. It's nice to see that he's able to throw before they get to training camp. So now he doesn't get to training camp and just overuse his arm, which typically when your arm gets tired in training camp, you start going back to some of your bad habits. And also from a talent standpoint, I just believe they got a lot more speed at their wide receiver, and they're going to be attacking defenses and really trying to attack defenses deep down the field. Play action, we know because they're a physical team, going to run it. But I look for Cam Newton not to approach his MVP season, but we'll see a different Cam Newton running when it's forced, using that physicality only when it's necessary, but trying to manage to get Cam this offseason, made some tremendous adjustments. He's a vegan now. He's doing a lot of different things to try to take care of his body. His body looks amazing. He has a little less muscle mass, looks a little bit leaner, and is really buying into the small things that these quarterbacks, that being Scott Turner and Norv, are trying to teach him. So they're very impressed with his overall growth as a quarterback leading the Carolina Panthers, looking for them to be back in the playoffs this year.
If Cam can continue on the trajectory he was showing last year, his first year under Norv Turner, before the TJ Watt hit, before he got hurt and was then essentially a shell of himself before he got shut down, then the Panthers, to me, are a team, one of the most likely teams to go from out of the playoffs to into the playoffs. I love the addition of Gerald McCoy. I think that defense could be back to, maybe Cam can't be the MVP he was the year he made the Super Bowl. The defense could be similar to that caliber, even though they no longer have Josh Norman as a shutdown corner. And for Cam, you saw so many positive things at the beginning of last year, the first half of last year. It wasn't just the deep shot offense. It wasn't just where Cam is waiting and waiting and waiting and then trying to fire it into a small window. He was taking easier options. They were getting more running backs and tight ends involved in the flats and as far as screenplays. Those things make his job easier, and then he got hurt. And so this isn't me being a Cam Newton apologist. I just think last year, it's not an excuse talking about the injury. Right. It's an explanation. Now, coming back from injury, surgery, and changing his throwing motion, those are all a lot of things he has to overcome. If he can, I think the Panthers can be a very dangerous team.
So, CC, I know you wanted to bring that up. You're adjusting your throwing motion. You're going into year 9 for Cam Newton this year. How hard is it when the minute maybe you face adversity, aren't you going to want to go back to what you know, rely on your athleticism? How hard is it for an athlete to be able to make that second nature so it comes so naturally?
The thing about Cam has a beautiful throwing motion. He's not trying to change his throwing motion. He's trying to change his footwork. He's trying to make his feet more busy. He's trying to be more consistent as far as stepping to the left of his target, which he doesn't do. He relies on his arm. He's got a beautiful throwing motion. Cam's problem is anticipation. Sometimes he holds the ball longer, and his footwork can get lazy. So his footwork being consistent, his throwing motion is not going to change. He didn't get shoulder surgery because he's got a bad throwing motion. No, he ended up getting hit, which led to shoulder surgery. Cam has one of the pretty throwing motions, but how do I become more consistent? How do I deliver the ball? Every once in a while, you'll see Cam Newton be like, where'd that ball come from? It was high. Yeah, because his feet and his foot discipline hadn't been the best, and that's what Scott Turner and Norv Turner are working on.
And prior to the injury last year in Week 10, Cam had accounted for 19 touchdowns and only 4 turnovers. He was taking care of the ball better. There weren't as many huge plays downfield. His air yards per pass were down, but he was getting sacked less. He was taking care of the ball better. His completion percentage was way up. Everything was going positively. And then his shoulder TJ Watt got him good. And so I think we have good reason to believe, Cam Newton, that we're looking for more consistency, looking for better fundamentals, that he was on track to that even before this offseason. What we saw the first half of last year, when, by the way, halfway through the year, Carolina looked like one of the 8 best teams in football.
And Nick, I think you'll be happy about this. Carolina is one of the organizations, based on their owner and some of the things that he's experienced. One of the things he's going to bring to the team is he wants a championship atmosphere. He doesn't want this in and out of the playoffs, one year in, next year we're around 500. But the other thing is their analytics. They beefed up their analytics department, and they are going to be one of the few NFL teams that their decision making will be based on a bunch of geeks like Nick Wright trying to tell them the probability of being able to do this.
Fourth down, what to do in those
all situations like they are going through an overhaul as far as how they're going to do things.
Good stuff. All right, let's move on. Back to the NBA now. It's been an off-season of musical chairs in the league. Big players making big moves to form big duos across the NBA. And while most fans are seemingly thrilled about it, well, the commissioner is not. Adam Silver isn't fond of trade demands, calling them disheartening, says the league needs to address them. Nick, what's your reaction to this?
And listen, the league created this in the latest collective bargaining agreement and the one before it, and I have very little sympathy for them in this regard. The league felt owners and teams had to be protected from themselves. We can't have any more 7-year, 8-year contracts. So they put a cap on the number of years on a contract. They put a cap, which there had been in the last few collective bargaining agreements, on player maximum salaries. And that created two things. One is, even when you sign a brand new deal, you're not that far from free agency. And because you put a cap on how much LeBron or Russell Westbrook or any of the top players in the league can make, those guys are not. One team can't, your home team can't say, we'll pay you $60 million a year. It's one thing to leave $30 million on the table. Are you going to leave $120 million on the table? So they created this. And so and there's one other element. No, you don't have to acquiesce to the trade demand. Like the New Orleans Pelicans could have said, no. Anthony Davis is going to come play for us. You know why they did acquiesce to the trade demand? Because they wanted the return. The Oklahoma City Thunder wanted to reboot, and they wanted the return. Players in the NBA don't hold out. Guys, Anthony Davis went to him last year and demanded a trade. At no point did he say, I won't play for you anymore. We never see that happen. Eric Bledsoe demanded a trade a few years ago. The team sent him home. He didn't say, I'm not going to play for you anymore. So there's a push and pull with everything. And if you want to give power back to organizations, then to a degree, what you have to do is remove the 4-year max on signing free agents. Let someone offer someone a 9-year deal, a 12-year deal like Mike Trout has in Los Angeles. But the owners don't want that. So the flip side with shorter contracts is less risk for the team, but players always going to hold the hammer, which is you don't want to lose me for nothing, so trade me when I want to be traded.
It's about the guarantees. The reason why the NBA is in the situation is when you guarantee, and you got 10 guys on a 15-man roster, and they got guaranteed money. You know something? You can come to work, tell people what you want. Imagine if you had 4 years guaranteed here. You know something? Man, get sick whenever you want to. Hey, you know something? My back hurts.
Sick once this year.
Right,
but just imagine every job. I just want you to imagine. No matter if you go to work or not, you have guaranteed money. The owners don't have much leverage. They gave too much power to the players, and now this is the backlash. Paul George, 2 out of the last, 4 years, he's demanded a trade, and he's gotten out of it. The Pelicans had to trade Anthony Davis. You know the reason why? Because if he destroys that locker room, he destroys your fan base. If he's not going to play, if he's got a bad attitude, you still got to pay him. What if he goes out there and gets hurt? So now you have to be able to trade him. What if he fakes an injury? What if he say, oh, man, my back? They send him to get an x-ray. You don't see anything, but let me tell you something. If you want to fake something, fake a back injury. So now the owners, they've given the players ownership type power. This is the backlash from it. And when you have guaranteed contracts, man, you are at the mercy of the players. And that's what we have seen with the best players. But this only works for the best. Right. If you are a
mid-level player,
if you are right in the middle of the pack, you're not going to be able to do that. Only the best in the game can do it.
But it's true, because look at over the last 2 seasons. If you're a team, you can trade a player who's under contract. If you're a player, a good player, you can demand a trade if you're under contract. So how binding are contracts if you're not having guaranteed money?
Right. Well, listen, the contracts are, in a lot of businesses, they're worth the paper they're printed on. Blake Griffin signed a 5-year contract to continue his life in Los Angeles. They said they're going to retire his jersey.
That's the part we get wrong, though. He's going to play basketball. He's going to work there. But no one promised him, hey, man, this is where your family, no one promised.
But that is what the Clippers promised him. That is, in that specific instance, that is exactly.
He's the first guy been lied to.
No, I'm not. No, absolutely not.
I just think guys get consumed with, this is where I'm getting ready to. No, it's not about a life. It's about what are you going to do and where you're going to play the next couple of years. And right now, Blake Griffin, did the organization tell him, yeah, we're getting ready to do this all around you? But what was his choice? Not sign the deal?
Well, he could have signed elsewhere. There's a lot of things he could have done.
He did the right thing because they could pay him the most money,
sure.
right?
I got no problem with it. My point is it's a two-way street. I don't think we disagree here.
It can't be a two-way street. Because one guy owns the team, the other people work for the team.
Yeah, so
it's got to be a little bit different for the owner. You can't tell me the owners and the players got to have the same rules.
Okay, well, what I'm telling you is de facto in the NBA for the best 10 players in the league, they essentially do. Because the most powerful person in the Pelicans organization last year, it turned out, was not Gail Benson. It was Anthony Davis. And it turned out the most powerful person for the Thunder this past season, Paul George, was close. Now, Paul George, by the way, is an anomaly. Where he signs a contract extension, a year later demands a trade. We see guys demand a trade with 1 year left on their deals. But one last point on this. In all of our major sports in this country, football, baseball, basketball, if you draft a player, he has no freedom of movement. In baseball, it's 6 years. In the NFL, it's 6 years. In the NBA, it's a de facto 7 years. You have more than half a decade in all our major sports to sell your city, franchise, organization to the team, to the player. And if you can't do it, then I don't have much sympathy for you. And if guys want to, after being drafted, decide they haven't been able to, as an adult, pick where I want to work, and I want to go work where there's a beach or where there's nice weather or my family is, I don't begrudge those guys that, especially if you're one of the 10 best people in the whole world at what you do.
Back here on First Things First with FS1 NBA analyst Sarah KUSTOK. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, guys. Great to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good for us to be back.
Cleveland, I should say.
Yeah. I won't be sharing any.
No, we won't. It's just great to have Sarah. She's a wonderful broadcaster.
No.
Yeah.
She still has
Some
recovered.
things can just be left unsaid.
Could you tell?
Hey, guys, there could be another big
There.
game.
Take a drink.
That's what Nick said.
All signs.
All signs, Nikki, pointing to the Oklahoma City Thunder going into, I would not say that, rebuild mode. And as a result, 8-time All-Star Russ Westbrook reportedly wants out. Reports say Miami has expressed interest in Russ to pair him with Jimmy Butler.
What could go wrong?
In South Beach. All right, Sarah, envision it. A duo of Russ and Jimmy. Could that duo compete in the East?
I think we need to define the word compete. Because when you look at the Eastern Conference, I think there are clear-cut favorites in Milwaukee and Philadelphia right now. And then I think there's a handful of teams that are competing for one of those top 4 spots.
Yep.
I would put Brooklyn ahead with where they sit. I'm curious to see what happens with Boston. Add Indiana in the mix. We'll see what Toronto still looks like, if they move a couple parts or how their team comes together. But where they sit right now, I would put them right behind there. After that, Orlando, you could add as well, and I'm not sure if I missed anyone.
No, let's not. We don't have
Towards
to
the bottom.
Orlando. You're trying to be very nice there, but that's Orlando had a nice season last year, and they won't be much better.
But with that being said, so there's some spots there at the bottom where there's an opening in the Eastern Conference. And so when you match Jimmy Butler with Russell Westbrook, I would be curious, one, to see how their games fit together, because they're two obvious, very bold, dominant guys. But with their competitiveness, with their skill, I think oftentimes we look at Russ and we compare it to what we believe he should be, the potential he should have, how he could play, as opposed to the player that he is. And he is still one of the top 20 players in the league. And so with that all being said, more of where I would hesitate, less about Jimmy and Russ, what's the rest of the team going to look like? Because who are they going to have to give up? I think they have a nice piece in Bam Adebayo. James Johnson is a solid guy. What happens is Goran Dragic a part of that? Is Justice Winslow a part of this? So more of it to me when you look at the depth of this Miami team, and I think more often than not, there's times we could count Miami out, but because of the way they run things systematically, how Eric Spoelstra coaches, the brains and the moves of Pat Riley, we have confidence in what they could be. However, this would be a whole different look. And how does Russ and the way Russ plays fit into Miami? Where is the push-pull and the balance in that? And so do I believe that they could compete for one of those bottom spots in the East? Potentially, but I also think you would need to see how the rest of the roster is filled out.
I think the pendulum has swung far too far on Russell Westbrook. Listen, there is a point in time when Russell Westbrook was overrated, probably the MVP season. We fell in love with the triple-double, even though Harden arguably had a better year, LeBron arguably had a better year that year. Russ averaged a triple-double, led the NBA in scoring. We loved the loyalty after KD left, got his team to the playoffs, and people were talking about Russ like he's a top 4 player in the league. He was not that. But now people are talking about Russ as if he has no value whatsoever because he's on a 4-year, $171 million contract. That's nonsense. Next season, there will be, Daryl Morey said it and he's right. There's 25 to 30 players in this league that actually matter. For next season, not for the future, not what they will be. Can you impact the playoff race in this coming year? Russ is unquestionably one of them. There's only 4 of those 30 guys that have any chance of being moved before the end of next season. Kevin Love is one, C.J. McCollum is one, Bradley Beal, and Russell Westbrook. He is the best player of those 4. He is the one who right now we know, even on an under-talented roster, can get you to the playoffs. He did that in the West the year before Paul George got there. So would Russell Westbrook and Jimmy Butler be a championship duo? No. But right now, Miami is trying to get back to the playoffs. I think they would have a chance even if they didn't sign Russ with Jimmy Butler there because they don't have their own draft picks moving forward so much anyway, so they can't tank. If you had Russell Westbrook, I would take it a step further than you. I think they would be right there in contention for that 3rd spot in the East. They can look Boston eye to eye, Indiana eye to eye, Brooklyn until and unless Kevin Durant comes back eye to eye and say, we've got 2 of the best 20 players in the league. So I don't think Russ is an MVP. And I think that the contract is going to be a bad one in 3 years. But Russell Westbrook is not overpaid next year. And the Miami's always worried about the here and the now and acquiring stars. So I think it would make sense for Miami if they can make the trade work.
But see, I understand your concern with the rest of the team. I'm still focused on these 2 because they have such dynamic personalities, such big personalities. What are you more concerned with, them meshing or the fact that they're 2 ball-dominant players and both need the ball a decent period of time? We saw it with Jimmy Butler in the playoffs last year in order to be successful. That's hard to make work.
Well, Jimmy Butler and what they were trying to do with him offensively in Philadelphia, he wasn't a good fit there. Now, I'm still shocked that Jimmy Butler left Philadelphia because they really had championship aspirations. But for me, Jimmy Butler, he made his decision as far as his career, what he wants. Man, he wants to be by a beach. He wants to live somewhere nice. Like, he ain't trying to win no championships. And if Russ goes there, they ain't got no championship aspirations. They can't get through 4 or 5 series. Russ, as good an athlete he is, averaging a triple-double, why isn't he a better defender than what he is? And will he allow Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley to run the offense? He hadn't shown that he's going to do that. So, yeah, people go the other way as far as criticizing Russ. But as far as, if he is a top 25 player, he is one that I'm not concerned about winning a championship because I don't believe that the way he plays, and that is not conducive in the playoffs to have been able to get other people involved in the game when the game slows down. How he plays is not championship caliber basketball. So, no, I don't think they're a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference if him and Jimmy Butler decide to go there because Jimmy Butler went there just to chill and to make money. All right, because he made that. When you leave Philadelphia and they got Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, after the type of leadership that he showed them, like, you know what his decision is about championships. I believe Russ is about Russ. So now you have those 2 combustible items going forward there. To me, it'd be one of the more interesting stories in the NBA next year, how they do together.
I think it will be interesting. I would take the opposite view, though. I was covering Chicago when Jimmy Butler came in the league. I know Jimmy. I talked to guys at length that have played with Russ. I think there is a difference between, and I don't think it's right or wrong, actually competing for a championship and the process by which you go about things. And I think Jimmy Butler has issues when guys do not go through the process, the habitual things, the day-to-day of a winning culture. That I believe Miami has. And whether or not You can argue if he should be a guy that should stay in a position where he can win a championship or a title. I think that what drew him to Miami, to Eric Spoelstra, to Pat Riley, was the way in which day by day they go about things.
Yeah, institutional talent.
Yes, and the infrastructure of that. And I believe Russell Westbrook is very much of their attitude, their mentality, how they go about doing their work on a day-to-day basis is a way in which they will gel. How does that translate in a game and on the floor? That's a different question.
And I think Jimmy Butler was a little frustrated with something I think you're frustrated with in Embiid, in that how committed to your nutrition and your weight and your conditioning are you? And what the whole world, basketball world's frustrated with Ben Simmons is, how dedicated are you to getting better? And Jimmy Butler also, I think, wanted to be the man somewhere. Now, if they trade for Russ, there's a bit of a push and pull there. What I would say in defense of Russell Westbrook is, last year, after the first year with Paul George ended so poorly in that first round of the playoffs against Utah, last year, before Paul George got hurt, Russ had handed over the reins to him. Paul George was an MVP candidate. Russ was not taking as many shots. It wasn't until Paul George got hurt that Russ then went back to what he knows, what is natural to him, what is his basketball instinct, which is take over, shoot, dominate the ball. I just don't want to close the book on Russell Westbrook yet. I feel like there's an element of Kirk Cousins with Russ at this point, which is we can't talk about him without mentioning the contract. The contract is the contract, and at some point down the road, it might be an albatross. It's not an albatross right now. He's one of the 20 best players in the league, and he's slightly overpaid. What that means if you're looking for the 2023 season is different than what it means if you're looking for the 2020 season.
The difference between him and Cousins is he was a star before he got the contract. All right?
Yes.
Cousins has never been a star. All right? And people are upset that he got that type of contract.
All right, Sarah. We're moving on to talk some Clippers. They are the betting favorites in Vegas to win the title on the heels of their big moves in landing Kawhi and PG-13. Sarah, are the Clippers the best team in the NBA?
Yes. I would unequivocally, at this point, say yes. However, I think
caveat.
I think there's a lot of teams that are right there behind him. I am so excited. I had no dog in the race. However, horse in the race, dog in the race.
Dog in the fight, horse in the race.
It's your comment, whatever you want it to be.
You know how we're rolling. But I was so excited when I saw this move and saw Kawhi Leonard go into the Clippers. And I probably would have slightly had them as the front runner. At this point in the year, we know so much can change. We don't know what rosters look like. I think as we start to go through what teams look like in the West, a lot that we point to with Milwaukee and Philadelphia in the East. However, it was just Kawhi going there. I think I still would have given the Clippers a slight edge. However, now with Paul George, I say this because we can look at the Lakers. I like some of the moves the Lakers did filling out the roster. Toss in Portland, toss in Denver. Incredible offseason and free agency period for Utah. Houston still, even though they didn't make any moves. We could sit here and go through all of the list of teams that probably feel they can compete. I think Milwaukee is going to be better even than they were last year. Philadelphia, I think you could put them up there. However, I believe with the Clippers, what Kawhi Leonard was able to show us this last season, how he led Toronto to a title, now matched with Paul George, who, assuming that he comes back healthy from that shoulder surgery, he was an MVP candidate at the early part of the season.
Three-quarters of the season.
So to think about the fact you have got those two players along with a roster that is deep. They are talented. They have confidence. And add in the fact that they've got the head coach in Doc Rivers, the continuity of that coaching staff, what Lawrence Frank and his front office will be able to do, not even just now and not just with this move, but as you head into the season, and the ability to be creative and think on their feet as the season progresses. And more than anything, and I talk about this a lot with different teams that we've seen, this team likes each other. They enjoy playing together. I know it's a new group. I know it's going to be led by Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. However, both those guys chose to play there, and the rest of the group understands their roles. They understand their fit. There's great continuity. And so all of that in its totality, do I think this is as balanced and even in the most amount of parity we've seen for teams that believe they could win a title in a long time? Absolutely. But I would certainly put Clippers at the top of that.
See, so I respect all those points you're making on the Clippers, and we can even
typically after that a fireball comes.
Well, no, it's not a fireball. Listen, the Clippers do have a great coaching staff, and they do have depth, and they showed you last year what they can do without stars, and now they have 2 stars. But right now, the Vegas favorite should be, and the team that we are most confident will be there in the end, should be Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a team that brings everyone back except for Mirotic, who went to Europe, and he wasn't even playing at the end of the season, and Brogdon. They have their entire core locked up long-term, aside from Giannis. They were a 60-win team last year that was running roughshod through the playoffs until they lost a double overtime Game 3 to the Toronto Raptors, and it flipped the series. They were trying to go up 3-0 on Toronto, and then the entire season's different. They lose that game in double overtime, and they are not able to recover. Giannis will come back better. How do I know? He's come back better every year of his entire career. There's no reason to believe Chris Middleton won't maintain. There's no reason to believe that coaching staff now in place for year 2 won't build on what they did last season. And when you were listing all those teams, 7 of them are out west. It is going to be a dogfight for seeding out west. And I would imagine Kawhi Leonard is going to be on load management next season like he was this past season. Doesn't mean he'll play 60 games, but if the over-under was set at 68, I would take the under. I don't think he's going to play 70, 75 games this year, maybe ever again. Paul George is not expected to start the season healthy. So if you're the Clippers, and even if you have all this talent, if you're the 3 seed, and that's if you're not because of load management, and in the first round, pick one of those teams. You've got the Warriors with Clay back. In the second round, you're facing Utah. Third round, you're facing the Lakers. Like, it is, to me, it is so much harder out west, and Milwaukee doesn't have any new players to integrate. They don't have any new, all right, let's see how this fits, see what the rotation is. So to me, and the East, it's Milwaukee, Philly, and then a bunch of teams that we'll see about unless KD comes back earlier than expected. So I think Milwaukee should be the favorite. I think the Clippers and Lakers are the 2 teams that, while they won't have the best record in the West, are the most dangerous in the playoffs come out west. Denver, Utah probably have the best regular season record, but to me, it's Milwaukee.
Yeah, I think the 2 teams in the West, that being the Lakers and the Clippers, are both better than Milwaukee. And the West is so much tougher. How much better are they to win a championship if Milwaukee coasts through the East? So you make the argument that the West is tougher. Well, it's going to make that team that comes out of there a lot better. And what Giannis showed us last year against Kawhi, people talk about these bounces. Oh, Philadelphia, if they get a bounce. Oh, if Milwaukee. Well, Milwaukee went on to lose 3 other games after that.
Yep.
No great team loses 4 games in a row. And what Giannis did on the biggest stages, because at some point, you do realize you will stop saying, oh, he can get better. We know he's got potential. What if he can hit this shot? But at some point, he will level off. Like, he's not going to be a 45% shooting from 3. So we got to realize you keep going up and then you level off. Then you hit your prime. How long can you stay in your prime? Now, yes, can he grow? But also the NBA has seen the new and improved Giannis. They will be doing different things next year. We say this all the time in the NFL. Oh, Baker Mayfield, now they got a book on him. Oh, okay, all right, yeah. But the NBA will be better suited to build slow Giannis down. They're going to force him to still be able to shoot the ball. Let's not let him get to the rim. But I believe what Paul George and what Kawhi can do against LeBron James, because he don't have one guy to go against now. He's got 2.
One of those guys is going to be guarding him for 48 minutes in the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and possession to possession,
yes.
He's got the best 2 perimeter defenders guarding him. And to me, that gives the Clippers a huge advantage over all those other teams in the Western Conference. The big thing is the Brow going against the Clippers. Yep. How can he take over? Because they do not have an answer for him. So to me, it's not just the bench. It's not Lou Williams. It's not just the coaching staff in the tail of the tape. It's how good will Anthony Davis be? And, man, those 48 minutes against the Clippers for LeBron, those will be some of the toughest 48 minutes that we've seen him play.
And I agree. And I think Milwaukee is right. I would put Milwaukee ahead of the Lakers. They're right behind the Clippers. However, you brought up a name that I don't think we should just the Clippers have closers. Kawhi is a closer. Paul George is a closer. Lou Williams is a closer. You've got guys off the bench, and you also have shooters. For as much as we look at the Clippers, when you first look at their lineup, you are overwhelmed by how good they can be defensively. and the players that they have locked down at every position, they also have shooters, and they have an ability to score. And I think oftentimes look at a team like Milwaukee and you wonder, okay, if someone's off, if teams are doubling, tripling Giannis, where is the scoring coming from? How consistent are some of these other players? And to me, the Clippers have guys that have been there and have shown that they have an ability to score in different ways.
Nick, you mentioned that one of the advantages Milwaukee has is they're bringing everyone back. They play together. They don't have to get used to playing together the way the Lakers will with those two, the Clippers will with those two. How long does that take? How much of a disadvantage are you? And even if you have two superstars, they've never played together, like in what you can
I
see in
think the
Brooklyn.
Lakers are at a far bigger disadvantage than the Clippers in this regard. The Clippers had their whole core is back, and they're adding 2 stars. Now, integrating those 2 stars will be difficult, but those are 2 low-maintenance players, and those are 2 guys who don't have a. They are unique in talent, but not unique stylistically. There's a lot of guys in the league that play the style Paul George does, the style Kawhi Leonard does. Anthony Davis and LeBron are both kind of unicorn-ish, and the whole roster's different. Like everyone, and so for the Lakers have the far bigger margin, and the Clippers have the same coaching staff as last year. Right. The Lakers obviously have a totally different.
Man, we got Randy Moss on our team. I remember the offense coordinator sitting me down and said, Chris, they got to show us what poison they want to get killed by. They want to double team Randy. They're going to put their best corner on you. Typically, no. They're going to put their best corner, try to slow down Randy, make sure he don't score 3 or 4 touchdowns. I'm getting ready to eat all these other dudes alive. So imagine our boy Lou Williams going against the 3rd or 4th best defensive player now. Because, man, Golden State, all they had to do was stop Lou late in games. Man, you got to stop Paul. You got to stop Kawhi. Lou Williams should have a feast on whoever they decide to throw on him. So we also have to calculate that in there. At the end of the games, Lou Williams is going to be in there, and that's going to be one of the strongest offenses that we have in the NBA.
Let's talk some football now. This offseason, the Eagles moved on from Nick Foles, gave Carson Wentz a 4-year extension. Eagles tackle Lane Johnson says that Wentz is in a different mental state this season, says he's there before anyone else every morning. He's blocking out all the distractions. He's working and working hard. See, what are your expectations for Carson Wentz?
Now, Carson Wentz is one of the guys I just believe. When you just look at him, man, he's got everything that you want. Size, he's the prototype quarterback. Unfortunately, early in his career, and this happens to a lot of players, when you get nicked or you start getting injuries, it's not that people just question your overall ability, but man, there's a lot of times in the NFL, Anthony Carter, 4th game I ever played with the Vikings, his hamstring gets tight on a Friday. We were playing on a Monday night. Before the game, they had him warm up. He couldn't go. Man, that was the worst day of his career. Not because of his hamstring. Man, they put me in there. And I went for like 170 and 2 touchdowns, and it was a wrap as far as who was going to be the #1 guy. And pressure, it's real in the league. And they have guys in that locker room, man, that can put a different type pressure on you that cause you to do things that are uncharacteristic. And you think all players, professional athletes, have confidence. No, they don't. It's very, very fragile. And when you see, when they put Nick Foles in there and that team, man, went up a couple clicks. Their passing game started working. That crowd got behind them. And next thing you know, they're beating New England in the Super Bowl. Man, that could shatter your confidence. He tried to do all the right things, say all the right things, but it is officially his team now that Nick Foles has gone on to Philadelphia. You add someone like Deshaun Jackson as a deep threat, one of the best we've ever seen in the league as far as the deep ball. And let's get back to that physicality with that offensive line. Let's get a running game, which creates play action, which I believe he has his best season. We give him credit for an MVP season a couple seasons ago. He wasn't able to finish that season out. But I still believe he should be one of the top 5 MVP candidates we have going into the season. Him and Aaron Rodgers are my guys to be able to look for the 2019 regular season.
Your point about what happened in your experience, where that tight hamstring for Anthony Carter wouldn't have been as a devastating professional moment as it was if you hadn't gone out and done what you did and were who you were. It's similar with Carson. If I would have been right 2 years ago, that, you know what, the Eagles are now drawing dead. They lost the MVP,
yes.
Can't win a Super Bowl. If Nick Foles, which they almost...
One more play in that Atlanta game.
Exactly right. That's exactly what I was about to say. If in that first playoff game, that Atlanta game, it goes the way it looked like it was going to go. They had some very good fortune at halftime, if you remember, of that game. Got ball that could have been intercepted, wasn't. If Julio's just able to get 2 feet in bounds at the very end, then nobody's questioning Carson Wentz. And then what happened last year only redoubled the pressure in this regard. The 2 years ago Eagle team was great with Wentz, and then they were able to rekindle that greatness in the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Last year's Eagles team was middling. And then Carson goes down, and then all of a sudden they have a spark. They win a playoff game again with another good fortune, the double doink game. They were against Chicago, remember? And so it is not surprising to me that Carson was in a difficult spot the last 2 years and now is relieved that nobody's looking over his shoulder. The backup quarterback for the Eagles is Nate Sudfeld. You don't got to worry about him. And even if he wasn't worried about Nick Foles, he knew that Nick Foles' championship ring sparkled a little differently than his. They might be the same ring, but it's not. And so now he gets to go try to be back the guy who he was at North Dakota State, the guy that made them take him number 2 overall. And the only real question to me, Jenna, is his ability to stay healthy. And it's not an unfair question. He had a small fracture in his back when he was growing up that was revealed later.
Yep.
Broke his wrist in college, got his leg shattered in year 2, had another back issue last year. That's a lot of injuries, and we've got to see him play the full 16.
And let's keep in mind, you like this organization. This is a good organization. This is an organization that doesn't want that pressure on Carson Wentz, which is why they gave him his money this offseason. They said, we have confidence in you. You're going to be able to go out there and do it. Lane Johnson said something else that was interesting. He said, we were underdogs 2 years ago and we won. Last year, we didn't really have an identity. We didn't know who we were, and we kind of struggled a little bit. So who is this team now with this quarterback that's just now coming back with a new wide receiver? I mean, what kind of identity do you think this team's going to have?
The number one thing you hear them saying is it's Carson Wentz's team. And however he decides to play, that's how we're going to go. That's a constant theme you're going to hear from the coach. You're going to hear from the organization, from their star players. They realize he's a stud. And last year, not only Carson Wentz, but there was disappointing performances by a lot of their players. That team's got to be led by their offense, by Carson Wentz. They'll bring back that deep passing game. You should be excited. If you're an Eagles fan, you should be excited. It's hard to come off of that Super Bowl. All the accolades, all the pats on the back. And you know something? Those Philly fans, they didn't help Carson Wentz out either. You know why? Because they were snipping at him. Oh, man, Nick Foles. Oh, Nick Foles, man. Oh, Nick Foles. Oh, St. Nick. No, now he's down there in Jacksonville. Those Philly fans get behind your quarterback and Carson Wentz, and they are a legitimate Super Bowl contender this year.
See, don't you have a tattoo?
He's got a tattoo on his back.
Yeah.
Cross.
Yeah, cross. That's going to be with me till I go to the grave or Jesus come, whatever come first. And my 2 kids.
Yep.
Them the only things you can guarantee in life. The rest of it,
Time for
Jenna's
stories.
got a neck tat.
Jenna has 0
covers
tattoos,
up
and I'm
with
willing to
makeup
hijack
every
the
day.
show to make sure everyone knows it. Stories to start your morning.
that would be a ratings bonanza. I'm here for it.
Last night's All-Star game did not disappoint. The American League, Dusty's laughing. The American League came out on top, beating the NL 4-3 in Cleveland. Hometown pitcher Shane Bieber won MVP honors after striking out the side on 19 pitches in the top of the 5th. Nick, what was your favorite moment from the All-Star festivities?
Vlad Guerrero Jr., Jock Peterson, semifinal, home run derby. You could hear the crowd explode from the hotel we were staying at in Cleveland. I didn't stay late night that night for the derby, but I was watching on TV and hearing the crowd. They were so into it. 91 home runs for Vlad, even though he didn't end up winning the thing. To me, that was the best moment of the weekend.
Yeah, to me, it had to be the fans. Me going back to Ohio, it's always a joy. I mean, people love the former Buckeyes. They love the show. Watching Nick in the casino and everything. Some of our fans, one of my aunties came up to him, gave him a hug, asked him what's the direction of his hair, told him get his life together and everything.
Yeah.
So the interaction there with the fans in Cleveland, it was really, really special, especially the ones that were on Nick Wright.
Cleveland will come for a Browns game next year, make our annual appearance in Cleveland.
Yesterday, the NBA
Jenna's gonna love
approved
that
using
one.
coaches'
Outside,
challenges
on the lake.
next season Teams can use one challenge per game on personal fouls called on the coach's own team, an out-of-bounds call, goaltending, or basket interference. Nick, good idea or bad idea?
I try to be progressive. I try to be forward-thinking. I don't ever want to be the old man yelling at a cloud and saying, back in the day, it was better.
No, you're not going to be on TV when you get old. That's a guarantee, but go ahead.
But back in the day, it was better. Before we had replay polluting sports, coaches' challenges polluting sports. It has not made the game better. It has not made the officials better. It has not made the viewing experience better. And now we have coaches' challenges to the NBA. It's a bummer, but I guess I should have seen it.
I don't think it's going to make the product better, and I don't think it's going to help the relationship between the players, the coaches, and the referees. We saw it 2 All-Star games ago, the last 2 seasons, the players, the referees going at each other like times we hadn't seen since the 80s as far as that relationship. Does this help? Now that the referees, they got someone else looking over their shoulder as far as instant replay, we know they're going to get them wrong, of course. But the coaches, the trick to it is, do they use their challenge for something that's effective compared to late in the game when they need a challenge?
All right, Jared Dudley recently tweeted some love for his new teammate Kyle Kuzma, said Kuzma is the key for the Lakers. The 23-year-old was the one young player the Lakers insisted on keeping. Nick, how much confidence do you have that Kyle Kuzma can be the Lakers' 3rd best player in his 3rd season?
Listen, he was arguably the 2nd best player on the team last year, and now Anthony Davis slots into that role. He can certainly be the 3rd best offensive player on the team. There was one part of his game that fell apart last year, his 3-point shooting on open threes. He went from shooting 37% on those shots to 30% on those shots from year 1 to year 2. To me, that was an anomaly. I don't think he was injured. I don't think he changed his shot. It's just bad luck, bad fortune. He's going to have even more open threes this year. If he hits them, he can be back where he was last season, around 18 points per game.
We saw in the playoffs how important 2nd and 3rd scorers were. Pascal Siakam, sometime being the 2nd leading scorer, what it did for Kawhi. Bledsoe, not being dependable, what it did for Giannis. So as we start doing this, even when KD was hurt, who are they going to get outside of Clay, outside of Steph? So yes, Avery Bradley's important, but no one more important than the Kuz as far as the Lakers and their championship aspirations.
You know, there could be another big move on the NBA horizon. All signs are pointing to the Oklahoma City Thunder going into rebuild mode. As a result, 8-time All-Star Russell Westbrook reportedly wants out. Reports say Miami has expressed interest in Russ to pair him with Jimmy Butler in South Beach. Nick, could a duo of Russ and Jimmy compete in the East?
Absolutely. Now, would they be the favorites? No. Do I think they would make the NBA Finals? I don't. I think Milwaukee and Philly, if Philly's got some new pieces now, but if they're the team that I think they'll be, those are the 2 best teams in the East. But could Miami instantly assert itself as the 3rd best team in the East, jumping over Indiana and Boston and Brooklyn unless Kevin Durant comes back way early? I think absolutely they could. Miami almost made the playoffs last year without Jimmy Butler. They now have Jimmy Butler. If you add Russell Westbrook, don't think about Russell Westbrook and the $46 million he's going to make in 2023. Think about Russell Westbrook, a guy who last year, through the first half of the season, did defer to Paul George before Paul George got hurt, was playing well. I understand he had an horrendous shooting season last year. His 3-point shot and his free throws were career worsts. If he can just get back to his career averages in both of those areas, he's a no question top 20 player in this league. If you can add a top 20 player, you add a top 20 player if you think you can compete for a championship or even just a conference championship. So yes, Miami's kind of boxed in. They don't have the cap space. They had to create cap space in order to trade to get Jimmy Butler. That was almost a miracle what Pat Riley and Andy Ellisberg were able to do. If you're able to go from when last season ended, your best player is who? Goran Dragic, to a team where your 2 best players are Jimmy Butler and Russell Westbrook, that is a coup. It's not what the Clippers did, but it's damn close. So, yeah, I think this would be, if the Heat can make this move, it's a no-brainer for them.
Well, they'll be competing for a playoff spot. No, they're not going to be one of the better teams, top 2 teams. Can they make it to conference final? I don't think so. At this point in Russ's career, is he willing to adapt full time? You said earlier in the season, he did make some adjustments.
Yep.
But then what happened after that? Typically, you revert back to. Now, we might blame it on Paul George being hurt, their lack of shooting and scoring. But to me, Russell has not and maybe it's the coaching staff because he has not had a dominant coach who demanded that he change his style. He did have Mo Cheeks, one of the best point guards all time, used to play the Philadelphia 76ers, on the staff, trying to help him improve to be more efficient as a player. I think Russ is one of those kind of players. I don't think people criticize him for his salary. He's earned that. He's been MVP. Like, he's been in the league long enough. He's won enough. And for 3 straight years with a triple-double, people don't mind guys getting paid. People just don't like Russ. And if you don't like guys, your commentary or how you cheer for them or how you root against them, they become consistent. Chris Paul, do you like him or don't you like him? It's not a matter, is his game aging? If you like his game, you typically are going to criticize him less. I don't believe, even when Russ was an MVP, there was a number of people that they just don't like Russ's style. They don't like how he attacks every single game and is not as efficient and play the prototype point guard way. Russ, how he's interacted with fans. You know, so to me, it's not, oh, Russ is making this amount of money. It's, do you think you can win a championship with Russ? And do other players want to play with Russ? Those are the criticisms that have been consistent.
Well, then the next follow-up would be, what concerns you more? 2 big, sort of abrasive personalities playing with each other and learning how to mesh, or 2 guys that really need the ball in their hands, trying to play each other and figure it out?
Well, I don't think Jimmy Butler really needs the ball in his hands that much. I think Jimmy Butler can be a closer.
Even with what you saw in the
games.
playoffs at the end of Philly last year?
But Philadelphia was a better team with Jimmy Butler with the ball in his hands.
Right. Philadelphia, he did that because that's what Philadelphia wanted him to do. Philadelphia didn't do that because that's what he demanded of them. But Russ is a flawed player. Russ probably shouldn't have won that MVP, but the counting stats were so gaudy. In real time, I said I wouldn't have voted for him for MVP. But we've got to recognize what he still is, which is a difference maker in this league, which is the best player that will be available over the next 11 months in this league until we see what the next crop of free agents and trade demands are. And I disagree with the notion that you can't win a championship with Russ. You can if he's your second best player.
What team could he be on to win a championship?
Well, see, they were up. He and the Thunder were up 3-1 and were favorites to win a title 4 years ago. So when he was the second best player, they were a championship contender. When he was a young Russell Westbrook as the second best player, they made the NBA Finals. You can't win a championship with him as your best guy.
But you can't give him credit for losing a 3-1 lead. He's the point guard.
Okay, well, so there was a lot of factors there. But we should not act as if we know you can't.
Who could you pair Russ up with right now and be considered to be, you're one of the best teams in the NBA?
LeBron or Giannis or Kawhi?
Who's going to have the ball?
What? Who's going to have the ball with Giannis or with LeBron?
Yes, because Giannis is best on the offensive end when he clears it out and take him off the bounce. Would we agree with that?
I agree.
So where's Russ going to be?
So the fit with Giannis, because neither one's a great three-point shooter, fine. I was just going to listing the best players in the league. Put him with Joel Embiid. Right? Put him with Anthony Davis. Put him with James Harden, probably wouldn't work. LeBron would be a tougher fit. Put him with Steph. Any of those guys, that is a championship contender. Jimmy Butler, to me, is not good enough for them to be a championship contender. Kevin Durant, a healthy Kevin Durant, we know that's a championship contender. We've swung too far on Russell Westbrook. He can't be the best guy on a championship team. But having him on your team doesn't eliminate you from championship contention. Now, given the money that he makes, is there a team that has one of those top 10 players to pair him? No, and he's probably not going to end up competing for a championship at this stage in his career. I get that. But he and Jimmy Butler would be interesting. It would be good for Miami. No one would want to face them in the first or second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Like, that I feel confident in. You disagree?
I totally disagree. I think you like the way he dresses.
No, well, I do like the way he dresses,
he does.
but that's not it.
Moving on, Kevin Durant wasted no time announcing his decision to play in Brooklyn. Did it right at the start of free agency. Sarah gets me. Get this. Nets GM Sean Marks said that he didn't know KD chose his team until everyone else found out on social media. Marks also added that the team doctors evaluated Durant's torn Achilles Monday, and they have not ruled him out for next season. Sarah, would Durant be making a mistake rushing back to play next season?
I think I talked to some Nets folks yesterday, I think this is one of those situations where we pick words out of a press conference and the way things say to then make speculations about what it means. And not to say that he was not ruled out for it. No. And not you, and all of us, we do this. And I think there was so much excitement and enthusiasm surrounding Kevin Durant, when he's going to return, when we're going to see him on the floor again. That Sean Marks, the GM of the Nets, was simply saying, we don't know. He literally just met with our medical staff. He just met with our doctors. He ruptured his Achilles, and a lot of that is going to be a strategic way in which they will bring him back. The Nets have never been a team to rush anyone back, and so I don't think in any sense they will be pushing for his return in any way that's quicker than what's necessary. But I don't even think at this point, and again, that goes back to him just meeting with the doctors, that they've even laid out a plan, that they've even gotten into exactly what it's going to take. So I think more of Sean Marks' comments were based on the fact that we don't know. I'm not going to rule him in. I'm not going to rule him out. It is so early in the process that he's not going to make any speculations or estimations or timeline on Kevin Durant's return.
He's not going to fail like the ownership did in Golden State, where they said, oh, you will see Kevin Durant. Oh, really? Will we? Oh, there's no chance. The coach said, oh, there's no chance he can blow out his Achilles. Oh, really? But Sean Marks, I've been knowing Sean a long time. My brother coached him and everything. Sean, stop lying, okay? Number one, all right? They're not doing it deliberate. But there is no way you can sign Kevin Durant without some type of checking. Now, there is a thing called patient-doctor privilege. Kevin Durant's doctor is the doctor for the Nets. So Kevin Durant would have had to consent for the doctor at some point to be able to show the Nets staff his medical records. All right? So we have to know that someone conveyed that information that Kevin Durant, his rupture was a clean rupture. It's been repaired, and they did that before they signed him. There is no team out there signing one of these guys, even though Sean said, oh, I didn't talk to him, we didn't meet, yada, yada, yada. Well, you don't want to get fined for tampering, okay? But they were clear. They knew, they had the confidence in his doctor, who is their doctor, that the surgery went well. There could be a normal recovery in doing that, but I'm not going to fail the first day, my first press conference, by putting injury and putting it in a time capsule that now people are going to hold me to that. He did the right thing. He said the right things. But for me, the carrot before the horse would be, I'm trying to return next season. If I'm a player, if I'm Kevin Durant, and I think that based on my athletic career, I can put myself in Kevin Durant. All his money's guaranteed. He does not gain anything by not coming back. Paul George, horrific injury. We hadn't seen that type of basketball injury. Very, very rare. At that season next year, he came back and played a handful of games, all right? Even though they weren't playoff games, a handful of games. And that would be my directive to myself. I'm getting ready to come back. I'm getting ready to shock people. I'm getting ready to pick me out 2 or 3 athletes in the last 5 to 10 years that have torn their Achilles. I'm going to talk to them, talk to their doctors, and get me a time frame. I would set me a target being about 7 months, because based on the people I've talked to, they expect him and they expect the Achilles to be completely healed in 7 months.
Well, so let me ask you this before I give my opinion on this. If he was cleared to play, fully cleared, ready to go, and the playoffs had started, would you be okay if you were the Nets or Kevin Durant?
No, the doctor wouldn't clear him. The doctor, because they couldn't simulate that type of competition. If it's during the regular season, you're clearing him for a regular season, which he's going to have limited minutes. The intensity of the playoffs, that would have to be taken into account, and I don't see a team doctor clearing an Achilles when they haven't played in the regular season.
Okay, so in that regard, in that case, then we agree. That if Kevin Durant wants to motivate himself every day for what is a grueling and monotonous and not fulfilling rehab and recovery process by, I am going to do what Kobe did. 240 days. Not Boogie, 357 days. I'm going to be on 8 months. On this 8 to 12 months, I'm going to be on 8 months. Kobe was right under 8 months. The only player to come back faster than 240 days. Notable player Wes Matthews did it in 237. We got basically...
Should be noted what Kobe's age was at the time.
Absolutely. Okay, sure, absolutely. They're older players. Dominique, it took him 9 months. Chauncey Billups took him 10. Kobe, 8. Wes Matthews, 8. Rudy Gay, an older player as well, 9 months. Boogie Cousins, the full 12. But they also were... He maybe could have come back earlier. They were very slow with him given the situation. So I have no problem with the motivation being, I'm going to come back by the middle of March. Give myself a month of basketball for the playoffs, and then we are going to be a dangerous playoff team. Kyrie's going to keep us afloat, use that first month to get myself back in shape, get to know my teammates on the court, all of that. But if you are the Nets, and there is the part of the question that I would say no way to is the rush. It is not a 1-year contract. It is a 4-year contract. I know he can opt out after 3, but for the Nets, this is about this year, kind of. But it is about the 21 season, the 22 season, and assuming KD and Kyrie stay for the full 4 years, the 23 season. You don't want to jeopardize those years by rushing Kevin Durant back this year. Now, if he's cleared without being rushed back, then of course he plays if he's cleared before the playoffs. But I would not allow, Sarah, if I'm the Nets, his first game in a Nets uniform to be a playoff game. I don't think that would be setting himself up for success.
Agreed. And I think that's what we saw with the Warriors and his re-injury. The level of plays, C talked about it, we all know it, we see it, but you talk to any player, the level of intensity of the playoffs is something that's not even close to the regular season. I do think, too, with Kevin, it's going to be different and interesting because all the players that you listed, he's one of the most unique players, his skill set, his body that we have seen, and he's very different than all those players. So I think you take that into account, how he needs to utilize his body, how he's going to come back, and how his skill set and what he does and how he plays on the floor factors in.
Look, they don't want to make the mistake that the Warriors made last year. That was tragic for everyone involved. Back here at Sarah KUSTOK, we're talking Lakers. After missing on Kawhi Leonard, they went out and filled that roster by bringing in a number of veterans to surround LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Last season, the Lakers had players, but no shooting. This season, the Lakers have shooting, but are the players they brought in enough? According to a report, at least one NBA executive said, this is a much stronger team, one that fits around LeBron better. Sarah, is this LeBron's best team since he left Miami?
I don't feel that I can say this is his best team since leaving Miami. This is a better roster put together than what I anticipated. If you would have told me at the start of free agent they were going to wait out for Kawhi and lose out on him, and what pieces would they fill those gaps with? I like the roster. I like the fact that they picked up Danny Green. I'm excited and optimistic about what Kyle Kuzma can become. I think the Avery Bradley signing was a big one. I'm hopeful for what DeMarcus Cousins can bring to the table. But so you look at the different pieces and who he's surrounded by, and I think it's very strong. However, the Cavaliers had some good rosters, and namely that 2017 team was one when you start to match up position by position and who LeBron James was surrounded by, that to me would compete with this roster as one of his best. And given the fact that there was a continuity to them and the guys that had played together for a while, the fit between Kyrie Irving and LeBron James, and of course you add in Kevin Love and J.R. Smith and how well Tristan Thompson worked at everyone fitting in the roles necessary, I would probably give the edge to that roster. However, I really do like the way in which they filled out this lineup and the opportunity that LeBron James and Anthony Davis have with the complementary pieces around them.
This Lakers team has a chance to be the best team LeBron's been on since those early Miami Heat teams, because Anthony Davis has a chance to be and should be the best player LeBron's played with since early Dwayne Wade, and he maybe can even exceed what 2011 Dwayne Wade was. And 2011 Dwayne Wade was a top 8 player in the league. Anthony Davis is that, but he could exceed it, and he could have less positional redundancy than LeBron and D Wade had. But there's so many unknowns. The 2017 Cavs had no unknowns. We knew they were going to be mediocre defensively. We knew they were going to be spectacular offensively. And to your point earlier, C, every single person on that roster knew their role. Your
Yes.
top 9 guys, there was no question about, there were no ulterior motives. There were no different agendas. They had just won the title. There was Kyle Korver, who they added, who had not won a title with them. You had veterans like Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye, who were good locker room guys and could still give you good minutes. Tristan, JR, and Shump knew exactly where they were in the rotation, and a hierarchy of LeBron, Kyrie with the best year of his career, and Kevin Love, after being much maligned, coming off the greatest moment of his career, which was kind of stopping Steph in Game 7 on that 3, and then carrying that momentum into a healthy 2017 season. So that's the best team LeBron's been on since those Heat teams. This team can be better, but the ifs are, if Anthony Davis stays healthy, if LeBron stays healthy, if Boogie and Rondo are okay with whatever their roles are, if the coaching staff understands what the rotation should be, if Avery Bradley is more like Celtics Avery Bradley than lower body injury riddled last 3 years Avery Bradley, if Kuz can start hitting those open threes. A lot of ifs for this Lakers team to surpass what those Cavs teams
I think still it's a big if, too, who is LeBron in the playoffs after an 82-game schedule? Is he going to be the LeBron we saw when he was with the Cavs? Because we talk about all these other ifs, but that LeBron, will we ever see that guy again? I mean, he was amazing. The last 4 playoff runs that he's been on, he's been out of his mind playing basketball. Is he going to be able to do that in his 17th season? Even if Boogie buys in, even if Rondo, you don't have any problems with him, even if all these things happen, the thing that's important is he don't need to be as good because the Warriors aren't there anymore. It's a new NBA. It's about duos and everything. Is he better than the team across the corridor, in that being the Clippers? Those are more important questions than, is this the most talented team? Because if you don't win a championship, it's not going to matter. That other talented team, the Cleveland, they didn't win a championship. A less talented team won a championship. So I believe there's a number of variables. I believe this team has a chance, but I do believe that those question marks are real as far as, are those veteran players, even though they might be more talented than some of the players in Cleveland, no hidden agendas, and everyone was suited. Not that they would do their job. Those guys in Cleveland were suited for the assignment that they were given compared to what's going to happen to the Lakers.
Sarah, who's the 3rd best player on this Lakers team?
I would say Kyle Kuzma. Obviously you got LeBron, Anthony Davis, but I would say
Kuzma or Boogie,
yes,
or Avery Bradley if you like him. You think it's Kuzma?
Yeah, I think
Danny
it's Kuzma.
Green.
Danny Green, and I love Danny Green. I think he's going to be a consistent force for them, and I was most excited about that pickup. Boogie, I think there's a lot of question marks, and I think a lot of those question marks come from how do they use him and how does he embrace and accept his role.
I think there's only one problem. If Danny Green's the 3rd best player, the Lakers got problems. Now, if Boogie Cousins done the right way is their 3rd best player and Kuzma continues to get better, they're in great shape. If Kuz gets better and he's their 3rd player because he edges out Boogie Cousins and Boogie embraces his role, man, this is going to be a dynamic Lakers team. If Danny Green is the 3rd best player, it's because some other stuff has happened, and I don't believe that would benefit the Lakers.
But to 2 of the points you made, see, one is it's not the 3rd best player on every team across the league. Bit of a question mark. That's what Kawhi's decision allowed and made so exciting. 3rd best player on the Clippers, I think it's Lou Williams.
Yes.
But it's not like he is an all-star level player. 3rd best player on the Bucks, probably Brook Lopez. 3rd best player on.
Well, think about what Toronto, Pascal Siakam, and could Kuzma make a jump and make a leap and have that type of production? That's where you could see it.
But the other point you made is for the Lakers. We're going to talk a lot about them obviously all year long. If they are going to be in the finals or win a championship, they have to get Cleveland playoff LeBron. The last series, that's the only way. They have to get Cleveland playoff LeBron, Anthony Davis to be the guy in the playoffs that we've seen him be in the regular season. The roster now, because of the moves they made, adding Danny Green, keeping Kuzma, isn't going to prevent that team from being able, if they get that LeBron, to win a title. If they had not gotten Danny Green, if they'd struck out entirely on free agency, even if they got that, maybe they couldn't win a title. But the only path forward for them is that version of LeBron that we saw in years 12, 13, 14, 15 show up in the playoffs in year 17. Otherwise, they got no shot.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.